Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we hope you're having a great Labor Day weekend, and, well, we're going to delve into all things occurring in the state capitol, and then we're going to look at the Planned Parenthood controversy. All of that follows these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Welcome back to the program. Well, we're going to get into a bunch of things that we've talked about in the past. There's some changes that have occurred in the state capitol. We still have a budget. We still have the roiling Kathleen Kane situation. Joining me, as often is the case, is Steve Esack with the Allentown Morning Call and Angela Couloumbis with the Philadelphia Inquirer. They're investigative reporters. They've been covering both of these from the beginning. All right, let's talk about the budget first. Steve, new change in strategy out of the governor. First of all, set the scene. How many? We're into the third month. Do I got that right with no state budget?
I think so, yeah.
Entering the third month. Yeah, you've been covering it so long. I get it. Go ahead. Well, so what's going on?
The governor, people announce he's trying to switch up strategy here. Instead of having like dozens of people in the negotiating room, he's trying to limit it down to I guess, a core representation of his cabinet as well as the Republican-controlled legislature. Whether that leads to any substantive agreement waits to be seen. You know, I think I don't think that there's an agreement going to happen until both sides, either privately or publicly, agree to do what each one wants. And we all know the Governor Wolf hasn't given any real public strong support for the Republican plans for their pension or their liquor, and vice versa. The Republicans haven't given any indication that they are willing to do any taxing, shale tax, you know, which the other taxes, you know, really have been off the table.
But Angela, I thought there was something of a deal in the works when the Republican, leaders said to the governor, okay, we'll give you $400 million in school subsidy. That's what the governor wants. They didn't say what tax, but they said you have to take a 401k style plan. He said he's considering it. Do we know any more?
He hasn't given an update either to the public or apparently to the Republican leaders about where he stands on their proposal. But you have to remember, that was the Republicans essentially saying, this is what we've offered them. Wolf never came out and said, this is acceptable to me, or this is an acceptable bargaining chip. I mean, he's been very, very careful not to really kind of show his hand.
So he's not rejected it, not accepted it. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Yeah. So here we go. And, this is sort of a reoccurring theme. On the whole business with liquor privatization, we don't seem to be anywhere on that, Steve. I mean, it just... I thought modernization might be a possibility, keep the liquor operation state control, but maybe, it seems like this is all we've been talking about, but it's not been done for week after week. But it's the, other than Kathleen Kane, it's a major story.
That's the sideshow to the budget.
Yeah, well, important. Go ahead.
Well, no, when it comes to the liquor privatization, that really has been a very quiet issue, I think, more so than the pensions or the shall or the overall spend number for the budget. I mean, that is key. So far, neither side has agreed on how much money they want to spend in the state budget. And depending on how you count Wolf's proposal to begin with, I've always counted it as a $33.8 billion spending plan, because that includes all this money that he's taken out of the line item budget and into other pots.
Right.
And Wolf and his people don't count that extra money. So
they can't agree on where the money is going and how it...
Yeah, they can't even agree on Wolf's original proposal from March. What was the dollar amount in that one, let alone what is going to be the final spend here? So it just seems to me that the liquor issue really has taken the third seat in this thing, to a spend number, to a shall tax, to pensions.
And it wouldn't be Harrisburg. Maybe I should say the state capitol. If we didn't have a situation with the Liquor Control Board and a former marketing. Is that right? What happened there?
Well, a couple of days ago, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Middle District in Harrisburg announced that the former marketing director at the LCB is pleading guilty to charges that he accepted cash and gifts and other perks and freebies. I mean, here we go again. It's a very,
all sounds
it's
familiar.
a familiar story.
Yeah.
And this was a person who was in a position to help make decisions as to what was going to be sold in the state stores.
Yeah.
So these were vendors giving these various, perks to him. And
has the governor used that? I haven't heard that anyone has used that as another way to privatize, have they?
I don't think
neither of you.
No, the Governor Wolf has put a gift ban on his administration, but I can't imagine the legislature trying to use that because they refuse to give themselves a gift ban.
Right. We didn't even get into that. No gift ban.
Right.
Isn't there a Senate? One of the chambers does say a ban, but that's not in law.
That's
I got that
law.
right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they each have rules. In the House, I think it's a little less strict. They can't take cash. I think that's sort of intuitive for most. It should be intuitive for most elected officials.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take up the further developments with our Attorney General, Kathleen Kane, and then we'll see where all this goes after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back. I'm chatting with Angela Couloumbis and Steve Esack, both investigative reporters that have been working on not covering the budget, but also on Kathleen Kane. Hold on a minute. Before we get on, I mean, I've been around this Capitol for 30 years. The only two things that seem to happen are nothing gets done on the budget, Steve, right? Angela's shaking her head. And then we end up with Kathleen Kane's a story every week. But the lawmakers go out until the third week of September. Mm-hmm. So they're not even in town.
No, I mean,
is there nothing?
They should be thanking Kathleen Kane for creating this.
Oh, I guess they're coming back a little earlier, right? Maybe the 14th. But you get my point.
Yeah, it's just, I've only covered state government less than 3 years now. Yeah. And, the Governor Corbett never had these long-term budget stalemates except for his last one. And the Rob McCord issue, that came and went very, very fast out of the blue. This Kathleen Kane issue has been stretching on for months and months.
Normally,
Angela,
you've covered a lot of. Normally, we'd have 10 other stories that you were writing about.
Sure. It is August, though, so
that's true, and we should know. I got it.
Well, right.
That's a great point.
It's been, the summers are typically a little less busy in the state capitol, but the Kathleen Kane issue has really dominated the news because it's like a soap opera, and there are, sometimes daily installments.
It's going to be a made-for-TV movie. All right, I started with you on the budget. Let's go. Give us a quick update. Where do we stand on this? I mean, there have been a number of, literally in the last week or so. Go ahead.
Well, I think probably the most significant piece that unfolded late last week is we received word that the disciplinary board, which oversees attorney conduct, is moving for an emergency temporary suspension of Kathleen Kane's license. And under the Constitution, you have to be, in order to be Attorney General, you have to be a member of the bar. And there seems to be a question now. If the court, the Supreme Court makes the ultimate decision, if the court yanks or suspends her license, what happens to her politically? And it's a big question mark, and I think you'll find people making arguments on both sides. Some people have argued that some lawyers have argued that she can remain in. She can't make legal decisions, but she can make administrative moves and run the office.
Now hold on. So
I was going to say,
go ahead. Let me get this straight. So under one interpretation, the Attorney General, if she has this emergency suspension of her license, could not sign legal documents, could not be in court, could not, in a sense, practice as an attorney, but she could administratively function as AG. Do you both agree with that, or is that also in dispute?
I don't know really what administrative duties.
What that means.
Yes.
Hire and fire personnel.
Hiring, firing personnel, but she can't put her signature on a lot of court documents that are needed to continue various cases in the courts. And, Bruce Ledowitz at Duquesne University has said...
very well-respected constitutional lawyer, right?
Yeah. He has said, if she can't... the Attorney General, by statute, represents the public in court. If she can't, by law, do that because her license is suspended, can she function in that capacity? But then you get into a whole other legal realm of, okay, if she is, what happens next? The Supreme Court can't remove her. Can the legislature impeach? That process takes forever.
Yeah,
the governor with 2/3 consent of the Senate after a hearing. The language isn't very clear. What happens first? Is there a hearing? Who needs to move first, the governor or the Senate?
Yes.
But we do know under law that the governor with 2/3 consent of the Senate can remove her.
Can remove her. Yeah, and I think that goes for virtually any governmental official in the Commonwealth, if I remember. We're getting really into the woods here, but this matters a lot. Well, okay, let's just hypothetically say this. Her law license is suspended. She can't sign legal documents. She can't appear in court, but she could tell her first assistant what to do. He still works for her. So what's the practical effect if she remains in the office but says, you sign this, you don't sign this, you prosecute this person, you hire that person?
It's awkward.
What?
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
I'm just asking. I don't know myself.
Right. But it's awkward because her first assistant is a person who testified against her. So I don't know how well those two get along these days and how awkward it would be and who would listen to who.
I'm really baffled by all this. Go ahead. And you've been covering it day to day. Go ahead, Steve.
Angela brings up a good point about her first assistant. There's a line in the affidavit from the Montgomery County District Attorney, Risa Furman, that says, I think it alleges Kathleen Kane is quoted as saying, if I get taken out of here in handcuffs, what do you think is going to happen to you? So then you have this whole issue of who's going to be in charge over there. And that, it's a big agency with a lot of stuff to do.
Over 800 people work there, right?
Yeah, it's a $122 million budget if you count state and federal money and some other money. It's a ton of money.
All right, now in Kathleen Kane's defense, there's a group of people, if you know where I'm heading, finish the thought.
Well, there's a petition now on change.org that essentially, the gist of it is this, that the courts should not be making the decision as to whether Kathleen Kane can remain in office or not, going back to what we talked about earlier, that is a public decision. So they're asking the court to wait for her criminal trial to unfold and end, and a decision to be made by a jury there before they move on her license.
Yeah, I don't remember, in the past when folks have gotten into difficulty, some of them have been lawyers, some not practicing, many in the legislature, in other places. I don't remember anything about an emergency suspension of a license. That all seems a little far, and I was actually stunned at how quickly the disciplinary board responded. We got about 20 seconds.
No,
Go ahead.
the disciplinary board is notoriously slow. I think all you had to do is look at the history of the Kids for Cash scandal up in the
real slow
Lackawanna, Luzerne area, and they have moved really, really fast. But then again, this is like unprecedented.
We're in a hole. All right. Thanks for coming in. All right, coming up, we're going to delve into the Planned Parenthood controversy. We'll get to that following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania, and by the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance, representing companies involved in America's most affordable, reliable energy source. To learn more, visit pacoalalliance.com.
Well, welcome back to the program. Maria Gallagher, she's the Legislative Director for the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation, joins me for a discussion of the Planned Parenthood controversy, the videos that have been all over the country, widely aired. There's been efforts to deny Planned Parenthood some funding. Maria's here. We're going to chat a little bit about what's going on in Pennsylvania with regard to that. All right, as you point out, this is controversial. I don't think anybody would deny that. The question is, should Planned Parenthood's funding be downgraded or completely eliminated, reduced or completely eliminated, given the fact that, and at the heart of the controversy is there's a fair number of people who say, all right, they only do a small part of abortion. They do other things like, birth control, counseling, and all of that. So what's your position on that, the main part of that controversy before we get to the bill?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of the controversy has stemmed from these undercover videos which came out, and they showed some alarming things. I mean, they showed a high-ranking Planned Parenthood doctor who, and forgive me for being graphic, but she was blithely discussing the harvesting of baby body parts while eating salad and sipping wine. And that upset a lot of people, including pro-choice people who actually went onto social media and said, I don't want to support Planned Parenthood anymore because of what I've seen here. And we had another case where a doctor at Planned Parenthood seemed to be haggling over the price of baby body parts, even jokingly saying she would like a Lamborghini in terms of compensation. And then we have a Planned Parenthood doctor who seems to be talking about altering abortion techniques in order to harvest baby body parts that are intact. So this has raised a number of questions as to whether Planned Parenthood is violating not only fetal tissue trafficking laws, but also the Born Alive Infant Protection Act and the Partial Birth Abortion Act. And so that's why people are asking questions about the funding.
Now, the one question that comes up, and I want you to respond to it because it's an issue that gets raised, has to do with whether or not the videos were selective, whether or not that's a few sort of rogue Planned Parenthood folks, that it's not the policy of the organization. You've heard that, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to that.
Well, these were very high-ranking Planned Parenthood officials. These were not just the doctor you might find down the block. I mean, these were people at the height of the organization who were making these very alarming statements. And I have to point out that the Washington Post actually said that Planned Parenthood's claim that only 3% of its services are abortions. They said they gave that 3 Pinocchios, okay? They said that was not a truthful statement. So Planned Parenthood is in the abortion business, and the question now is, have they broken the law? And we have 4 congressional investigations looking into that. We have a number of states looking into that, so that's what is going on right now.
All right, let's run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about Representative Schimmel's proposal, and we'll see where all that goes. So we'll do that after we pay some bills.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Business Council and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation.
All right, well, delving into the Planned Parenthood controversy with Maria Gallagher from the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation. All right, so we've talked a little bit about nationally. Let's focus in on the state. Representative Schemmel, he's a new lawmaker from Franklin County, has a bill introduced in the legislature that will do what?
Well, his bill would basically prioritize family planning funding. In other words, the top priority would go to public health entities, and then next would come the non-public hospitals, and then the federally qualified health centers, and then rural clinics, and then finally primary care providers. So it would create a tiered system, but Planned Parenthood would no longer get the top priority for those funds.
They have the top priority now.
Basically, they're the entity that gets the family planning funding for most cases.
And that's been is that currently in state law, or is that done administratively by the governor's office? Do you know that?
Well, the funding is part of the state budget, and there are some things that the state can do, such as a priority of funding bill, but there are limitations to what the state can do as well.
Okay. So how much money are we actually talking about? Do you have an idea about that?
That's a very good question. Lawmakers themselves are trying to find those answers. They say it's been very difficult to find out exactly how much funding Planned Parenthood is getting. There are a number of programs. I know that one legislative aide told me it's very convoluted. And so they're trying to get a handle on this. It is a little bit frightening that we don't know where the money is going.
So let me say this. So is there a line item for it, and then the administration decides within that line item which programs get the money? Or is it specifically spelled out?
Well, there's family planning funding that we're talking about in this bill that comes from Title X and from the Social Security Act. But then again, lawmakers are saying we're trying to find out exactly where all their money is coming from, and we haven't gotten those answers yet.
Final question. Where does it all go? I mean, you got a Democratic governor who, you know, I'm not going to speak for Governor Wolf, but it's hard for me to believe that he wouldn't veto it. The other point is there any interest in the legislature? They just passed the budget. Obviously, they didn't do anything. Is this looking towards next year's budget, the following year's budget?
Well, as we all know, the budget situation is very fluid, and there is a state representative who is actually trying to amend the state budget to reduce Planned Parenthood funding. But as far as this bill is concerned,
they can't even get the original budget down. But go ahead, finish your thought.
As far as this bill is concerned, I don't know what the timetable is on this. I think that there's going to be a lot of discussion about this.
Okay. All right. I think I got all of that. All right. Well, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, stay well. And you stay well.